Have you ever watched your whole world collapse through a gap in the trees? I did. It was a Tuesday, the kind of bright, cloudless Chicago afternoon that usually feels full of promise. But for me, it was the end of everything. I was standing 50 yards away in Lincoln Park, hidden by a cluster of oak trees, watching my wife, Sarah. She was supposed to be at home, sick with a migraine that she'd described with such theatrical, whimpering detail that morning. But there she was, sitting on our favorite bench, the one where I'd proposed laughing. And she wasn't alone. She was feeding a sandwich, our sandwich, from our favorite little Italian deli on Clark Street, to another man. The way she looked at him, the way her fingers brushed his lips. It was a casual intimacy that spoke of 1,000 shared moments I knew nothing about. That single image burned itself into my mind, a permanent scar. The world went silent, and all I could hear was the frantic pounding in my own chest, a drumbeat signaling the start of a war. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel. Tell us where you're from and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. The betrayal didn't start in the park. It had been a slow poison seeping into our lives for months. It began with the strange behavior. The little inconsistencies that you dismiss because you can't bear to face what they might mean. Her phone, once left carelessly on the kitchen counter, was now her constant companion, clutched in her hand like a lifeline, its screen always angled away from me.
Ow.
Late-night texts were explained away as work emergencies from her marketing job. "Just a new campaign, babe. It's a killer," she'd murmur. Back already turned to me in our bed, the blue light of the screen illuminating the cold distance growing between us. Then came the receipts I found in her coat pocket for dinners at restaurants I'd never been to, for drinks at bars on nights she was supposedly working late. Each one was a small, sharp jab to the gut. She became a master of manipulation, a stranger wearing my wife's face. I'd gently question her. Her eyes would turn to ice. "Are you checking up on me now? After everything we've been through? You don't trust me?" she'd asked, her voice dripping with a manufactured hurt that was so convincing it made me feel like the villain. She made me feel small, paranoid, like I was the one losing my mind. The villains, Sarah and her lover, whose name I soon learned was Mark, felt untouchable. I'd see his name pop up on her phone notifications, a casual "see you soon" that felt like a punch. They were living their secret life right under my nose, emboldened by my trust, my love, my foolishness. They moved through the world with an arrogant confidence, convinced of their own cleverness. The breaking point came on our anniversary. I'd booked a table at our favorite restaurant, the one where we had our first date. I waited for 2 hours, nursing a glass of whiskey, the anniversary card I'd written sitting on the empty place setting across from me. She never showed. Single text finally came through at 11 p.m. "So sorry, babe. Migraine from hell. Curled up in bed. Rain check." But I knew. I drove home through the rain-slicked streets of downtown Chicago, the city lights blurring through my tears. I walked into our dark apartment, and the silence was deafening. I went into our bedroom, and the air was still and cold. She wasn't there. I fell to my knees in the middle of the living room, the weight of it all finally crushing me. The humiliation, the lies, the sheer disrespect. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was a complete and utter shattering of the man I thought I was. In that moment, something inside me broke, and something else, something harder and colder, began to take its place. The tears stopped. The despair receded, replaced by a chilling, crystalline clarity. My grief had burned away, leaving behind a core of pure, unadulterated rage. I wasn't going to be a victim anymore. I was going to be a strategist. The first step was proof, irrefutable and absolute. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled ex-cop who operated out of a small office in the Loop. He was expensive, but the photos he delivered a week later were worth every penny. Pictures of Sarah and Mark kissing in a parking garage on Wacker Drive, images of them checking into a boutique hotel in the Gold Coast, her hand possessively on his back, receipts from their weekend trip to a spa resort in Lake Geneva, all charged to a secret credit card in her name. I laid the evidence out on my new secret desk in a small office I'd rented. Each photo, each receipt, was a nail for the coffin I was building for her. My revenge wouldn't be a simple, angry outburst. It would be a meticulous, multi-layered demolition of the life she had so carefully constructed. It started with the legal traps. I met with the sharpest divorce attorney in Chicago, a woman known for her ruthless efficiency. We quietly moved all our joint assets into accounts that would be frozen the moment I filed. I documented every lie, every expense, every piece of evidence of her infidelity and financial deception. The trap was set, silent and waiting. Next came the social trap. Sarah was a social climber, obsessed with her image and her role on the board of a prominent local charity. Their annual gala, the biggest social event of the season, was in 3 weeks. It was the perfect stage. I made a quiet, anonymous donation to the charity, a significant one, ensuring I would be seated at the head table, right next to the podium. I was no longer just the supportive husband. I was a major benefactor. The night of the gala arrived. The ballroom at the Drake Hotel was a sea of glittering gowns and tuxedos. Sarah was in her element, radiant in a designer dress. Moving through the crowd with a practiced grace, Mark, her colleague, trailing in her wake, had no idea she was walking into her own public execution. When the time came for the speeches, the charity's chairman called me to the stage to thank me for my generous contribution. I walked up to the podium, my heart a cold, steady hammer in my chest. I looked out at the crowd, my eyes finding Sarah's. She was smiling, a proud, patronizing smile. I began to speak. I talked about the importance of charity, of honesty, of integrity, and then I paused. But integrity, I said, my voice dropping, carrying across the suddenly silent room, is something you must live, not just preach. On the massive screens on either side of the stage, the first image appeared. Sarah and Mark locked in a passionate kiss in that parking garage. A collective gasp rippled through the room, then the next photo, and the next. The hotel, the spa receipts, the damning text messages I'd photographed from her unlocked phone. I narrated it all in a calm, steady voice, laying her betrayal bare for the entire world to see. Sarah's face went from shock to horror to a pale, ashen mask. Mark simply vanished into the crowd. She was left alone, exposed under the harsh lights, her social world crumbling to dust around her. She was ruined. The divorce was swift and brutal. The evidence was so overwhelming that she got nothing, no assets, no alimony. The prenuptial agreement I'd insisted on, the one she'd called unromantic, was ironclad. She was fired from the charity board in disgrace. Her friends, the ones who had admired her so much, now wouldn't even take her calls. She lost her job, her home, her reputation. She was a pariah, a ghost in the city that had once been her kingdom. I saw her one last time, months later. She was working as a waitress in a cheap diner out by O'Hare. Her face tired and worn, the arrogant spark in her eyes long since extinguished. She didn't see me. I was just another customer in a booth, a shadow from a life she had thrown away. I finished my coffee, left a $20 bill on the table, and walked out without a word. The revenge was complete, but there was no triumph, no satisfaction. There was only a vast, hollow emptiness. I sold the apartment, the furniture, everything that held a memory of her, and moved to a small, quiet town on the coast of Maine. The anger is gone now, replaced by a quiet, haunting peace. Sometimes, when the fog rolls in off the Atlantic, I think about that day in the park, and I wonder if she ever thinks of it too. I rebuilt my life, but a part of me will forever be that man standing behind the trees, watching his world burn. Some wounds never truly heal. They just become a part of who you are. The end.